Today, we're talking about words that you may suddenly realize that you can cut from your writing. By which I mean we're talking about words you can cut from your writing. I wish more of my videos had props. It makes them more visually appealing. One very common piece of writing advice you'll get, especially when it comes to revision, is to cut out all of the unnecessary words in your writing. This tightens things up, increases the brevity, and generally makes the writing a little bit better, easier to read, easier to understand. In the right situation, most of the words that we're talking about today can work, but those right situations tend to be rarer, which means that cutting these words is usually the right thing to do. This intro is rambling a little bit more than I normally do, which is kind of ironic given the subject of the video. Anyway, word number 1 on the chopping block, realized. If you've got something like, I realized the butler was untrustworthy, or Fred realized the most valuable treasure was inside him all along, then you may not have realized that there's room for improvement. Saying that a character realized something is usually unnecessary or a sign that you haven't delivered the information in a good way to the reader. Oftentimes, you can just state the fact that the character is realizing and you'll get the same information across, and you can cut out the realization part of it. Ideally, though, you would want the reader to come to this realization on their own. If you've done this well, then the reader will realize the reality of the recent revelation without you having to relate the reason for this realization using the word realize. You can just say things like, the butler is untrustworthy, or the most valuable treasure was inside Fred all along, and it will generally come across that the character is coming to this realization. Ideally, you shouldn't even have to do that. You should show through the narrative that the butler is untrustworthy, or have a scene where Fred swallows some diamonds. Trust the reader to make the connections. Don't rely on directly relating realizations. Word number 2 that you can cut, that. Not this, not those, not these, that. Like the word that, not whatever I pointed to when I said that. This one is just generally, a lot of the time, unnecessary. If that is used as the object or the subject of a sentence, then it's usually okay to include. That thing is scary, or I wasn't accepting butler applications at that time. Those both work. Those are okay uses of that. And that also works as a sort of adjective. The microwave fish smell was that bad. Those are all okay uses of that. It's when that is used more as a conjunction when it becomes a problem. This evidence proves that the butler is guilty. Fred realized that the real treasure was inside him all along. That is a word that you can remove a lot of the time, reads exactly the same as that is a word you can remove a lot of the time. The evidence proves the butler is guilty. Fred realized the real treasure was inside him all along. Both of those sentences read exactly the same. I've just gotten rid of an extra that was in there. If you can remove that without altering the meaning of your sentence, then it's usually a good thing to do. There are reasons to leave it in there for rhythmic reasons, or if it's part of dialogue perhaps, but usually getting rid of a that you don't need is a good thing that you can do that. So you should do that. Next up, it. I actually like the word it for a few reasons. It's short, not very cumbersome, and can almost be invisible to the reader. Obviously, you have to make sure the character knows what it is referring to. You need to get the antecedent noun correct. But even if that's the case, there are times where you may not want to use it. The problem here is one of missed opportunities. Because it replaces a noun, if you use it, you're missing a chance to provide some additional description and color to the scene, specifically about the noun it is referring to. Something like, he grabbed the knife, its blade still dripping with frosting, becomes just a touch more interesting when you replace the it. He grabbed the knife, the weapon's blade still dripping with frosting. That version of the sentence is nice because it implies some things about the knife that we wouldn't necessarily have known. The fact that we're referring to it as a weapon and that it has a blade probably brings a different image to your mind than something like a butter knife that might have been implied with the last or the first way that I presented that sentence. Why a large bladed knife is covered with frosting, I will leave up to your imagination. Those little changes, replacing it with some more descriptive nouns, can really make a difference, especially if the rhythm of a scene doesn't feel right. Small changes can often improve the writing quite a bit. Never pass up an opportunity to get information to the reader, provided they aren't already overloaded. And the last word on our list, suddenly. Is it ironic that it took so long for suddenly to appear on? This one is just, in my view at least, lazy writing. Having the butler suddenly lunge at somebody with a frosting covered knife, or having Fred suddenly swallow a bunch of jewelry, just sounds kind of meh. Don't tell the reader that something happened suddenly, make it happen suddenly. Have the tone change, switch up your sentence structure, interrupt somebody mid-dialogue. Describe the sudden event using active, powerful verbs and powerful language. The reader will know that things are happening suddenly without you telling them that they're happening suddenly. This one is honestly a little bit tricky, which is why I think it's so easy to lean on suddenly to make events come on quick. Just like the end of this video, which suddenly is appearing right now. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video and found the advice in it useful. If you want to see more stuff like this, you can check out all my other writing advice related videos and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.